Okay.
Hey, Candace, can you hear me?
She was in the store.
Candace, can you hear me?
She's staying out at the house. It's a women's group. There's some friends, they all were raised together.
Okay, so you can't hear me coming across right now? Is your volume and everything? Yeah, I'm just to double check.
You're the only commissioner in the house.
Okay, hold on a minute.
Because I
Okay, got it.
Okay, can you hear me on this?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, I just wanted to double check that, and I guess I'll talk to you whenever you get on here for the presentation.
All right, thank you.
No, I think that was. Make sure. I didn't miss it.
No, I was pissed.
This year.
I did it.
Oh, really? When did you get that?
Just over the weekend, I was out of town.
Yeah. Go, bro.
Oh, hey. So I don't know, but anyway, is she going to go there? She's in.
I don't know. Did it? She got accepted. It's been accepted. Yeah, it's been accepted, but Alabama State already.
I think she's going to place.
We had to go to two sides. What's that?
You would want her to go up there, I think.
Yeah, but it's far away.
Right.
Good. How are you? I didn't think you were slacking.
What?
I didn't think you were slacking.
Hey, Josh. Yes.
What's the map? Where you can burn, where you can't burn. You know about that?
We have a central fire district that you can't burn in, and there's certain requirements that you have to do when you're.
Well, like when I burned on my lot, I called him and said, yeah, you can burn on that lot.
Where's an example where you can't?
See, I asked him that, and he said he didn't understand what you're talking about.
Well, I called him when I wanted to burn. on my lot, and he said, yeah, you're allowed to do that.
Well, you're not the central fire district. I'm assuming.
Okay,
that's
thank
what
you.
he meant.
Where can you burn? Like, where could it be burned? Give us an example.
Downtown.
B1, pretty much.
Oh,
There's a fire district that the board approved in like 1993. And then
All right. I would like to call to order the meeting of the Highlands Town Board of Commissioners for Thursday, November the 17th, 2022. Our first item on the agenda will be a moment of silence and pledge of allegiance. I would like to ask that you keep the family of Larry Rogers in your thoughts and prayers tonight. Larry was a town board member for a number of years, and he just recently passed away. He was a great Highlander and made so many contributions to the community. So I hope that you'll keep Larry and his family in mind in their time of mourning. So with that, I would call for us to have a moment of silence. Thank you. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. The next item is the statement of conflict of interest. We post that every meeting. If anyone has a conflict of interest, they should let the other board members know that. Hearing none, let's move on to the next item, which will be public comment. If anyone would like to make a public comment, we'll open the floor and you may come and speak. We'd like to keep the comments for around 3 minutes, but if anyone would like to make a public comment, please come down and make a statement. Seeing that there are no comments, we'll move on to the next item, and that's the review and approve the agenda. Before I call for a motion on that, the EnviroSpark folks, we were going to get with them to start talking about costs for installing the electric vehicle chargers. That meeting hasn't taken place, but I know Lamar Nix has communicated with them, and they will be meeting very soon, and we will have them on the agenda at the December meeting. Do I have any other changes to the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, we saw that note from Mr. Cooper where he said his attorney wasn't able to attend. I was wondering if we could just delay the WHLC lease till the next meeting.
We're not going to make a final approval. What I'd like for us to do is to keep it on the agenda. And if any questions or comments or concerns, I have a question or two about the lease. We'll look at that, and then it will go to Mr. Cooper and his attorney for their review before we take a final action.
Okay, so we're not planning to vote on this.
We're not planning to do a final thing.
Thank
Josh, is that correct?
That's
Okay.
correct.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So movement.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hand, signify by saying aye. Thank you, that's unanimous. Okay, the next item would be the approval of the September 22nd special meeting minutes. Do we have any changes or clarifications to those minutes? I know, I believe Eric and Brian, y'all were not at that meeting. That was the one at the joint meeting at Franklin of the three boards. Any changes?
I move that be approved.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hand and indicate by saying aye. Thank you. All right. And then the approval of the October 20th meeting minutes. I know Commissioner Pearson was not there, but do we have any changes or corrections to those minutes?
I have one thing. It's number 10, and I probably misspoke. I authorized Mr. Spencer to give us a class, 2 classes a year instead of a class every 2 years. I just want to make sure that that was not, I must have misspoke. It was 1 every 2 years, right?
Correct.
And that was in the minutes, so I think I just misspoke.
Any other changes?
I move that be approved.
Okay, we'll have a second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand and indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right. The next item will be reports, and we'll start with the mayor's report. I want to congratulate the Food and Wine Festival organizers for dealing with a very, very difficult situation with that terrible weather we had this past weekend. We had to make some changes at the last minute. We had everything approved and ready to go, but when you get rain in tents where you've got nothing but just a mud bog and other things like that, Josh Ward worked with the organizers, kept me informed, and we just had to make some changes to make it work. So appreciate Josh's work, and I appreciate the organizers being able to respond in a very difficult situation. Now I'm going to bring something up, and we're not going to resolve it tonight, but in the past I've proposed that we consider as a community, not necessarily just the town board, but the community, of covering the area where we have the ice skating rink. Because while the ice skating is out there now, but on certain events where we do have these rain situations, maybe having a place in the park where people could assemble might be something that we ought to look at as a community in the future. I'm not saying we need to solve that tonight, but it's something that I think should be put on the table. Couple of other things. I'm going to be attending by way of Zoom, and if any commissioners would like to join me, I'll give them the information. I'm going to be attending a grant workshop put on by DOT November 30th at 10 o'clock. I can show you how to sign up, and it's a grant workshop for pre-planning proposals for sidewalks for getting grants. I don't know exactly what that's going to be, but especially as we talk about our sidewalk master plan and also the 106 design that we already have ready to look at tonight, I think it would be worth my time to kind of learn what are some possible options for getting grants for planning sidewalks and so forth. So I'll be attending that meeting by way of Zoom. And then I'll be also attending the regional planning organizations meeting later on in the month. Then I want to also say, if you saw the article that was in the paper today, that was actually an op-ed that was published that I'd written in the Asheville Times. One of the things that I think it's time for the state, and I hope the legislature will look at it, is look at the room occupancy tax, how it's distributed. And I'd like to see more of a consistent distribution and policy throughout the state in this situation. So I just wanted to emphasize that was not just for Highlands, but I was hoping that maybe some people in Western Carolina, the legislators will think about that issue going forward. And then also I want to offer my congratulations to the newly elected commissioners for Macon County, and that would be a returning commissioner, Gary Shields, the new commissioner, John Sherrill, and the new commissioner, Danny Antoine. I look forward to us being able to work with the Macon County Commission to solve challenges and problems that we all share as Macon County residents. So congratulations to them. Also, again, we will miss and appreciate all the work that the outgoing commissioner, Jimmy Tate, has done, and as well as Commissioner Ronnie Bill, who will be leaving office at the next commissioners meeting. So that's all I have. I'm going to now ask the commissioners if they have any updates or reports that they would like to give. Hearing none, I will now move over and ask our town manager to give his update.
If you remember at the last board meeting, I mentioned that Matt Schuler, our IT director, was working on a system that would assist us with dispatching out our guys, especially for outages during storms. This past weekend, we had Tropical Storm Nicole come through. Matt had all three of the radios programmed in with our tones for each department. We distributed those to our ladies up front. The phone was forwarded from the office to their phones at home. And then that way, if they got an outage, they could turn around and they could send out the paging tones. Fortunately, we didn't have, the power outages and things like we thought we were going to do. So they took some calls, but they didn't actually have to, page out our guys for outages or water leaks or whatever may happen. But that was kind of a test run for it. I think it's going to work good. Matt's done a good job with that. And the reason for that is to help relieve the 911 dispatch at the county that takes our calls typically during these storm events. So we'll continue to work with that and work out any bugs that we have. And our ladies that take those home and spend their time doing that on those weekends and nights, we actually give them comp time for that. So it works out very well. Also, we sent out an RFQ, which was a requirement for the grant that we received through the Department of Water Infrastructure for the Dog Mountain Waterline Project for the engineering. Typically, we'll select an engineer and go with it. This time we had to do an RFQ for that. We had two submittals, which was WK Dixon, which we used a lot, which we're actually using on two projects currently. And we had Withers Ravenel, which was actually the firm that assisted us in getting the grant. Both were obviously, great firms. And so we decided to go with Withers Ravenel. And right now they're getting some paperwork together for a contract, for an agreement. With the town on that, there's some things they're going to have to work on pretty quickly to meet some deadlines, which is environmental report, and the engineering report, and some other things that they're widely aware of. And I think they're assisting some other towns as well on their grants. So that is all I have. Town Hall will be closed next Thursday and Friday, the 24th and 25th for Thanksgiving holiday.
Josh, give us a kind of rundown of where we're on sidewalks and paving.
Yes, so our paving is probably 2/3 done at this point. As you've seen probably in town, Oak Street from 3rd to actually 3rd to 1st has been done. That was probably our largest project. Colisagia extension that was gravel has now been paved. If anybody's been down that way, it's looks really nice, very smooth through that area. Our guys have done some drainage work prior to that. There's going to be some other gravel roads, Tally Road, Old Walhalla. It's yet to be done. So they're trying to get that done. Bryson has actually got the contract for that. It's supposed to be completed before the plant shuts down. Our sidewalks, you've noticed on First Street, also First Street was paved. The sidewalk goes down Oak Street, continued to First, the section that was not completed years ago. That's been installed, and also the portion of sidewalk down First Street down to the gas station. There's a portion there that has not been done that the developer will be doing there at that new sanctuary on First. It's at the top of First Street there. They will be completing that at a later time. We've also got some repairs. I've got a couple of areas that Lamar's identified that the brick is settling and causing a trip hazard. So we've got an estimate on that. We'll be doing that pretty soon as well.
They're all ADA compliant.
Correct. We need to make sure ADA compliance. I will say that our projects that we had for last year are moving forward pretty soon, which was the variable flow pumps at the water plant, our walkway over to one of our water tanks. We've got that material in. That'll be going on soon. The Arnold Road pump station, and our new project that was in this budget, which was the belt press at the sewer plant, and the modifications to that building and our shed building is hopefully going to be done sometime in the spring.
Okay.
What about the clarifier? You said you're going to apply for that in the next month.
Clarifier went into this fall funding cycle,
Right.
which was mostly loans. We will know probably in February.
So you've already submitted it.
They submitted it for us. Withers Ravenel resubmitted it for this fall cycle. That cycle will be mainly loans. We'll see what happens with that. We'll know somewhere between February and April on those.
And Mr. Mayor, I didn't know he was going to say Withers Ravenel. I've had a business relationship with them before.
Okay, that's fine.
The sewer line there at Carolina Way.
Lamar, do you want to give an update on Carolina Way?
Yeah, we've got purchase order for that project to start. We've waited for season to get down. This all that.
But you anticipate it before completion, before spring? May, anyway. Okay, just want to make sure.
Okay. All right.
And also, I would like to say, we did have our, the board took a tour of the fire department. Fire department will hopefully have a CO in the next week to 2 weeks. And, move in will be after that, and there'll be a formal dedication.
Yeah. Before we move on, let me follow up with some public comment from last meeting. I know Morris Williams was expressing concerns about how we will go about enforcing the new SDR regulations. I know Josh addressed that at that meeting. I just would say that we are doing that, but we need to be measured and deliberate in how we proceed with that. And then also Pat Allen was talking about loud truck noise pickup truck noise. I went and talked to one of my friends who has a Dodge Ram dual exhaust pickup truck. And he reminded me that that was factory equipment and was legal on, roadways throughout the country. It just happens that it makes a little bit more noise than one would expect some trucks make it. So I just wanted to give that feedback. And there is a general statute 2129 about mufflers that can be enforced if somebody's not using a proper muffler. But a lot of these trucks now have, street approved muffler systems on them. So with that being said, why don't we go to number 8, the consent agenda? Do we have any questions about the material in the consent agenda?
I move we approve it.
Well, I had one question. If
I'm
I
sorry.
could ask her. Under, I was noticing the sewer fund connections. We had appropriated $10,000 for that this year, but we had actually now gone to $25,000, which is we're in the whole 15,000. Lamar or Rebecca, what has happened? What is caused?
That's better.
Okay,
So we're actually to the good, so we're $15,000 over the $10,000.
okay,
We always budget low, we use that money at the half year mark.
all right.
Budgeted minutes at the end of the year, we allocate each year we budgeted.
Why'd you put a minus instead of a plus?
That's accounting.
Yes.
Trying to catch it.
Okay, all right, very good. Any other comments? We do have a motion, Commissioner Patterson?
Yeah, motion to approve the
We have a
consent
second. We've
agenda.
got a second. All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand and saying aye. Thank you. That's unanimous. Okay, number 9 is the Kimberly Horn maintenance for the Big Bear Pen Tower, and that would be Matt Schuler.
Good afternoon. You have in your agenda packet a quote from Kimberly Horn to do all of the maintenance that goes along with the periodic tower inspection that they have done. This covers all the items that were listed in that particular study that they did. The total is $26,574.36. And if you approve this, then you will also see the budget amendment as item number 17 for that. They're not together, but that would be kind of approving both parts of that, I suppose, together.
I move to approve the contract with Kimberly Horn.
Okay,
Second.
okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please raise your hand and indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right. Now, do we need to do the budget amendment?
It's
or was
further
that-
down, I believe.
Okay.
It's on the bottom.
The-
Yeah. Was it with the?
Yeah, under 17, got it. Yeah, okay, very good. All right, the next item would be item number 10, the WHLC tower attachment lease. Our town manager asked an attorney in the field to review that, and I will turn that over to Jay Coward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have reviewed both the leases that are on our agenda and additionally the lease agreement with the chamber. When I review any contract, one of the main things I focus on is how do I get out of this contract? Before I enter into it, I want to know what the escape route is. And in both of these leases, which are very similar, some of the same language in the LC and the ham radio lease, they have no clause that says that the town has the right to terminate the lease for any reason whatsoever. I just want you to know that. I mean, they can terminate the lease for a reason of default by the lessee. And there's plenty of language that describes what the defaults are and what the town has the ability to do if there is a default. But there has to be a default. There is no mechanism in either of those leases which would allow the town to just say, all right, we're done. We're terminating this lease. I've always felt like that if you're going to enter into a lease with somebody and you're the lessor, you should have the right to terminate it for any reason whatsoever. There are also reasons why that would not be so. But I think it's just my duty to advise you that neither one of these leases has that provision in it. So in other words, if you just discovered that dealing with whoever the lessee was just a pain, and you just said, we're going to get somebody else, then you don't have any reason. There's no default. You're stuck with that particular entity for the duration of the term. So if you want to do that, then I had no other changes that I felt like there was one in the WHLC, and that was to change the town attorney from Bill Coward to Jay Coward. And to bring to your attention the fact that there's no carte blanche termination clause. Other than that, they're ready to be signed.
In an earlier draft, and Commissioner Haim, I would say this is still a draft that we will approve and let Mr. Cooper and his attorney review it before the next meeting, before we have a final approval. That would be the procedure, if I'm not correct.
Okay.
Yeah. But I was going to say, in an earlier draft, we had a 1% a year increase. Now we've gone up to 3%. Josh, or would you want to determine how that came about?
Did we want to discuss Jay's comments on that? Do we want to add something that allows us out, or?
I think we should.
I think we should delay action on it and let Jay rewrite it, because you do want to have the right to terminate it for cause, but then you have to elaborate on what the cause is. You know, what did you do?
Or
Can't do that in a minute.
or no cause. I'm saying just not for cause, but just because you just don't want to be in business with that particular lessee anymore.
I'd really like to discuss something that he approved, not something that he doesn't agree with.
Okay.
Well, I think what we need to do, I think the board needs to direct Jay on what they want to see. So that's number one, I'm hearing, correct? That we need an out.
If that's the recommendation of our lawyer.
Okay. I didn't prepare a paragraph on that because I didn't know whether you wanted me to, but I will do that.
We're not taking action on tonight, so that's just direction, so we can.
We just need direction. So I'll follow up that with what the mayor stated. Matt had Gabriel to Savon review the contract and look at other tower attachments and what the current standard is for rates. And what you see in this draft lease is his recommendation, starting at $750, and then going up each year 3%. I think currently it's $529, I believe. And there was supposed to be an increase. Matt, was it every three years? That's what it currently states. I think it's more clean cut the way Gabriel Salon has proposed it here, with a starting point and then a clear 3% increase each year. And it gives a description of that within the lease there under rent.
Okay.
Josh and Jay, I don't know, I was watching the county board meeting last week. They just adopted a contract with another radio station. So Jay, you might want to look and see what the county's just done as far as their draft.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a comment.
Okay.
It strikes me as odd that we would enter into a lease in which we can unilaterally and arbitrarily vacate. And in other words, why even have a lease? We can just do a handshake agreement and we'll just run it for as long as everybody's happy. I do think we need to have conditions in which the lessee is in violation of, but other than that, why would a lessee, I mean, if I were to go into a lease, I think if anybody were to go into a lease with a lessor, that the lessor had the ability to just terminate at will, I'd be hard pressed to go into a lease. Certainly not for any kind of decent amount of money, which is what always drives leases. My only comment.
Okay.
I mean, I certainly see the benefits of being able to bolt at a moment's notice, but I think it cheapens the lease dramatically.
Don't we have provisions in this lease? For example, I noticed that we have late fees.
Yeah.
And everything, but if there's a failure to make those payments, doesn't that invalidate the lease and we take back possession?
Yeah, but both the leases have events of default.
Yeah.
And then it gives a section that gives the lessor remedies in the event of a default. And it tells what you can do in the event that you.
Yeah,
see a
that's already
default.
in there.
Yeah, that's already in. there.
Yeah, but what Jay's saying is to put in a clause that says, we're done with you. We're tired. I got up on the wrong side of the bed this morning. It's over,
And we
which is,
have,
it's great.
in looking back at the history of this board, we have been in contractual agreements before where we said, we signed the contract, we have to honor the full faith and credit of that agreement, whether we like it now or not.
That's why you sign contracts.
Yeah.
That's why people go into contracts with other individuals, because they're into agreements, because there is a contract that both sides are supposedly supposed to live up to and abide by. Otherwise, you have nothing.
Mr. Mayor, I think we ought to bring this back 10 and 11 at the December meeting when we have a final draft. And that would be my motion to defer action on items 10 and 11 until the December meeting when the town attorney gives us a final draft.
Have a motion? Do we have a second on that?
10 and 11.
Yeah, 11 would be the ham radio.
He said he wasn't happy with that.
Oh, not of the contract, of the agenda.
Mhm.
Well, I think we still have to give Jay some direction as to what we want to do. Do we, or do we not want, and I assume that the other party's going to have something to say about it too.
Right.
Yes.
I'd like to see a draft that he agrees with, but rather than one he doesn't agree with. So I'd like to see him bring back something that he would recommend. So.
You've made a motion.
Well, the only thing if you're going to include the ham radio in here, I have a comment on it. We are doing a lease to a specific person as opposed to a person representing a group. Is that okay?
I'm sorry.
Sorry,
I wouldn't listen. I was talking to Josh.
that's okay. Nobody listens to me anyway. In the ham radio one, we have a specific person that we are leasing it to, as opposed to a person who is representing a specific group. Suppose Mr. Spencer leaves, drops dead, whatever. How does that translate to somebody else in the same organization taking that over? Or maybe it doesn't. I don't know.
It says this lease shall be binding upon and inure to the benefit of their parties, their respective successors, personal representatives, and assigns. So whoever would have the rights in this particular document is bound by the document.
Okay, and that's kind of what I'm saying is shouldn't we be making the contract with, he signs as a representative of the group as opposed to him, and him alone is the only one that is responsible? I mean, I don't know if Mr. Spencer's looked at this and that's okay with him, but
Yeah.
I believe so.
The group is not really identified in here.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so
That's what I'm saying. It is, he's doing it for a specific group, and I don't want him to assign it to somebody that we have no idea who is.
Yeah, we don't want to sublet.
Yeah, that's what it's kind of like a sublet type thing. We wouldn't know. To the individual. Okay, I'm just, I guess if that's the way it needs to be done legally, I understand what you're saying. Yeah,
Okay. And Commissioner Hayne has made a motion that we send this back to the attorney.
Yes, sir.
Okay, for
it goes
his,
away, but they don't want it to go away.
Right, but they'll have to finalize and go from there. We'd have to renegotiate.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
so Commissioner Hayne has made a motion that we send this back to our attorney, both the WHLC lease and the ham radio attachment lease for further development and review.
I'll second that motion.
You second it, okay. And I would say that we have we given him enough direction now that he can draw this up? And I think, I know what Commissioner Dotson was saying was that he's not comfortable with this idea that we can just arbitrarily say we're out of the lease and terminate it. Is that the feeling of the board that we do not want to have that arbitrary termination clause?
I don't think I'm not comfortable with it. I think it's a great thing
Okay.
to be able to walk from a marriage at any given point. But I think we can get past that by Jay being able to draft default thresholds
Okay.
more than what we have.
Right.
That, you know,
And I think all,
maybe we don't go
we're
into
all in
Mr.
agreement on
Steele,
that.
the redhead or something.
Okay. All right. So we've got a motion on the floor and we want him to also develop those default thresholds. I'm going to call the question then, but I've got.
One
enough
other
time.
comment, just for Jay, maybe with the amateur radio thing, we specifically put his license number in. So if he ever loses that license and it can't be transferred and it can't be sublet, when you nail him to his FCC license, instead of the person, it goes to the license itself.
You're in agreement with that, right, Jim? Okay. All right.
I was going to say, because if you look at B under the the first time on the last sentence says for and on behalf of the Amateur Radio Club. So I don't know how that pertains to it or not, but if you put it in as a license, I guess it's pretty specific.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll let Jay work.
Okay, let me now call, you have a.
No, I'm-
Oh, you're ready.
I'm-
All in favor, raise your hand.
We're moving
signify by
along.
saying aye. Thank you. It's unanimous. Okay, the next item, number 12, the chamber lease agreement. Mr. Coward, and I know we have Kay McKen, the director of the chamber here tonight, so I'll turn it over to you, Jay.
There's just two comments. Basically, there's no termination clause in this one either. And like I've said, I think every contract that I've ever reviewed, the first thing I always look is how do I get out of it? Because you don't look at these contracts, monthly or yearly or, regularly. You look at it when you've got a train wreck, like something has happened and you want to say, okay, I need to get out of this. How do I do that? And there's nothing in this lease agreement that says that you could terminate it either. And again, I'm not advocating that you should always have that, but you should always know that you're entering into a contract without that escape hatch. And you should, know with eyes open that you have no way of getting out of this contract later on if you want to for any reason whatsoever.
I move we delay this until December and ask the attorney to bring back a draft lease he can recommend.
Okay.
And also in and I've already talked with Gibby about this because the way this was sent to me, I couldn't fiddle with it. I don't have my Adobe yet. But there's a contradiction between the first and second premise. And the idea is that this is a triple net lease agreement and that Town of Highlands has no responsibility for any expenses related to the lease premises. The next paragraph that says that the parties intend that in the event of any ambiguity in the language of this agreement, its construction shall be guided by the intention of the parties that the lessor be responsible for all expenses. Well, those two things are complete opposite of each other. So I told Gibby to change lessor to lessee in the second premise.
It's really not triple net either because they don't pay taxes, they don't pay insurance.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor.
Okay, but I mean, is that all we're going to discuss here? I mean, what happened to the last 3 months of us talking about rent?
Well, that's going to bring that up. I know that that Kay was going to talk with the county attorney about can they support cleaning of bathrooms versus rent? And I haven't heard, I don't know what the outcome on that was.
So we're in conversation still with the county attorney on that.
Okay.
And he's doing a little bit more research. So I don't have time. I've spoken with Eric several times and two of the board members and I actually had a Zoom meeting yesterday.
Okay. Right, then.
So until we know that,
Yeah, it was table until.
yeah.
You have a motion?
I made-
second the
Yes, we'd like the attorney to bring back something he can recommend and rewrite it as
Okay.
he would see fit.
All right.
See if they have any further.
We've got a second with
Right.
Commissioner Steeler. Any further discussion? Or I'll call the question. Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by raising your hand, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We'll address that at the next meeting. Okay, the next item will be code ordinance amendments. Bernie, excuse me, I'm sorry. That's right. On a roll here. Okay, item 13, ADA self-evaluation and transition plan. And we have, I believe, on Zoom, Candace Halliday, and she's with J&M Teague Engineering, and they were in charge of doing the plan. So I'm going to turn it over to Candace.
Good evening and thank you. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to share my screen then and get this started. All right. All right. Well, again, my name is Candace Hladek. I'm with JMT Engineering and Planning, and we're a transportation engineering and planning firm here in Waynesville, North Carolina. We were hired to develop the ADA self-evaluation transition plan to comply with requirements set forth in the Title II of the ADA. Also, per NCDOT's provisions, all municipalities with 50 or more employees must complete the self-evaluation transition plan process. Our team worked closely with Highlands staff to evaluate the facilities for Title II compliance. A big thank you to Michael Mathis and Josh Ward and all the other town staff that helped us with it. The American with Disabilities Act of 1990 is a civil rights law that prohibits discrimination based on disability. We all know this. But part of that compliance is conducting a self-evaluation to identify any of these accessibility obstacles or issues that need to be addressed. During the evaluation, we identified common barriers to accessibility and proposed a plan to help eliminate those barriers over time. The transition plan provides a proposed schedule for priorities and recommendations for remedying these barriers. The primary goal for your plan is to promote a greater accessibility to town facilities and services through identifying the barriers. Specific requirements are described under Title II of ADA and are federally codified. And they include a designation of a town ADA coordinator. In your plan, this names Michael Mathis as the town's first ADA coordinator. The town's ADA coordinator is tasked with investigating any and all complaints that the town may get, alleging that the government entity does not comply with the ADA. In this role, the ADA coordinator will oversee the town's policies and procedures and will also be responsible for the identification of resources and opportunities for agency employees at various levels to receive ADA-related training as appropriate. Another portion of the goals and objectives of this plan is to adopt ADA written public notice specific to the town. It also includes adding an ADA grievance policy that allows for prompt resolution of any accessible concerns. The written public notice is just out there to let applicants know, hey, this is what you need to do if you have a problem. This is who you need to, this is how we're going to handle it. The grievance policy is, this is who's going to take your concern, and this is how we're going to follow through with finding out, making sure that it's promptly handled. Another part of this plan, we needed to provide public comment. And then, of course, we did the self-evaluation of all the facilities to meet ADA accessibility guidelines. Our methodology for the ADA plan is pretty standard. It touches everything. So we did a public survey. We elicited some feedback from the community. We looked at your existing plans and code to make sure that if you did any work, it was acknowledged in this plan as well. And then we did the data collection and identified any barriers. That included town practices and policies for accommodation, town facilities, and pedestrian network facilities. And finally, to develop a plan for addressing those barriers for the transition plan. The public survey that we did was conducted from June 1st to August 1st of this past summer. We offered it both in English and Spanish. The survey was made available in print and electronic formats. It was a 20-question survey with only took about 5 minutes to do. We were careful to make sure that it was designed to promote accessibility. You had a really good turnout. We got 90 individual responses to the survey. The survey was publicized on the town's website. We had posters at Town Hall and the Recreation Center. We had flyers. We did a lot of in-person when our team was in town. We went business to business and handed flyers out. We made some phone calls to county officials to try and get it, the survey out. I am very happy with the results that you got. A couple of these results, some of the things that we heard, you can see on your screen, those are direct quotes from some of them. 48% responded that they did not know who they would contact if they needed assistance or had a concern with an accommodation. So that right there emphasizes the need for the designation of an ADA coordinator. The top 10 options for opinions for prioritizing accessibility improvements were sidewalks, curb ramps, and crosswalks. Overall, the survey results showed that the town facilities were perceived as being accessible. A couple of the key takeaways include that people seem to care about accessibility at the dog park and hope to have additional handicap parking spaces throughout town, both along Main Street and at public parking lots. The self-evaluation, the purpose of that obviously is just to look at everything as closely as we can. The methodology we used was we went to the ADA. The ADA.gov has a really great group of checklists that municipalities can use to do all the inside and outside of the buildings and any public spaces. What we worked on was the priority 1 and priority 2, which is everything outside and up to the doorways of the facilities. Michael and his and some other staff members have already stepped in and started working and knocking out the inside of the buildings, and that's really great and helpful. It was a very comprehensive review of the accommodation practices and policies, as I said. Some of the things we looked at were to what extent extra aids were made available at public meetings, and when and to what extent interpretive services were provided, and the effectiveness of communications with applicants, participants, and members of the public. The town does not currently provide handouts or signs or anything, but if somebody was to ask for them, they could get a large print electronic format. Some of the other things that the town doesn't currently do, we laid out, and at the end, we're going to be giving Michael and Josh some good references of who they can contact to add some of these other amenities. When we started looking at the facilities themselves, we wanted to really prioritize the downtown corridors and the school zone that you have. We looked really close at the signalized intersections and where people were crossing roads. The facilities that we ended up evaluating were about 6 miles of sidewalks, 182 curb ramps, 11 town buildings and parking lots, 4 parks and their parking areas, the playground, walking paths, the school zone. Separate criteria were developed for pedestrian and street crossings, signalized intersections and sidewalks and other external facilities using the ADA best practices toolkit for state and local governments. Okay. So again, our team, we walked all the sidewalks. We looked at all your curb ramps and street crossings really closely. We went to all the buildings and checked all the doorways and all the parking areas and the paths. You have a beautiful town. I loved being there. We were there for a number of days. We were there for 2 days. The few of the barriers to accessibility that we came across were curb ramps were a big one. If you see this picture on this one, it doesn't have any truncated domes on it. It's kind of at a wonky angle. So we made note of all the different curb ramps and what condition they were in. We looked at pathways at all your facilities. The picture on this page under pathways is the path leading up to the dog park. When we spoke with people in town, we heard a number of times and in the survey how they felt like that was not an accessible park, but they would love to be able to use it. On the sidewalks, the picture there, we did find some trees in the middle of the sidewalks. Some of that cannot be helped. We understand that. And the doorways, sometimes the doorways, what needs to be updated is to make a handle accessible. You need to be able to open a door with a closed fist. And the threshold needs to have not be higher than 1/4 of an inch. And these things make it more accessible by wheelchair and peoples with disabilities. We also looked at all your parking in town. We looked a little harder at Main Street and your downtown corridors and really checked out where you had parking places and if there were enough to meet code and your pavement markings. If you see the parking picture here, as you know, you have the big blue stripe across all your parking places. And a funny story, when I was there, it was very busy when we were downtown. And I had one of your patrons that was obviously a visitor from out of town came over and asked me if that was a loading zone or if that was a handicap parking place, because they weren't sure. And this is one of the reasons why there's specific guidelines in the METCD and through ADA Title II for specific parking places to be marked with the symbol and things. And I have all that in the plan as well. I wanted to point out the curb ramps. There's a number of maps in the plan. It's a big plan, and I know that I'm just skating over the top of it. But this map shows that you guys are doing something right, that you've got curb ramps in a lot of places, and that's really good news. What isn't okay is that 68%, no, 68% of the curb ramps that you have are not ADA compliant. Now, that being said, more than half of those non-compliant curb ramps are due to a lack of ADA approved truncated domes. While using the decorative textures on the curb ramps looks really nice, Title II has specific guidelines for detectable warning systems. The truncated domes are critical in warning pedestrians who are visually impaired that they are leaving a pedestrian path and crossing into a space where motor vehicles are present. So very quickly, if you prioritize putting truncated domes in, you could do a whole lot of bringing things up to compliance. Speaking of getting things done, the next part of the plan was the transition plan. This provides a proposed schedule, I say proposed, that prioritizes the remediation of certain barriers and also provides guidance for upgrades to systems when regular maintenance is required. It's intended to be a living document that it's available to the public and is updated regularly to inform town staff, decision makers, and general public and people with disabilities that progress is being made. Recommendations are broken down into quick wins, such as working with downtown businesses to clear sidewalk space. And the other thing is high priority, such as adding truncated domes on curb ramps. Each recommendation is given a target timeline, such as either ongoing 1 to 2 years or more than 5 years. And when you're starting to budget for these things, the North Carolina Department of Transportation provides a bicycle and ped facility cost tool that will help you with budgeting. So this is just one of the pages out of the plan where we have the transition plan. And so, for example, we have post and publicize the ADA position statement at appropriate locations, including the town website. That's a real quick, easy win. Install ADA compliant door handles, specifically on that one bathroom facility at Founders Park. And so that's how it's set up. And the way that these plans are meant to be put is this plan is so that you know what you need to work on. And when you have the funds or the time comes that other work is being done on a facility, then you know you can fix things because you already know what they are and you can keep track of those things. So the next steps, primary review and approval, preliminary review and approval by North Carolina DOT. I've already done this for you. So I took this draft plan and I've already had it in front of NCDOT and they've already sent an approval letter on it. So without, the next thing that you need to do is if you like this plan and you'd like to adopt it, it needs to be adopted. And by adopting it, doing a resolution and adopting this plan, you also are including the addition of the ADA position statement and the grievance procedures. Once it's been adopted, then the final plan will need to be submitted to DOT, and then you'll have met your needs to meet their guidelines. I know that was quick, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I have one or two of them. One, you were talking about additional ADA parking spaces on Main Street.
Mm-hmm.
Last year we had the DOT, they did a resurfacing of Main Street. And correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, they came in and laid out the parking spaces and told us at the time they were following a code that would meet the ADA parking space pattern also. Is that not correct?
Yes, so I'm going to reshare my screen real quick and I'll tell you why. I've got share screen. Where am I? Oh, can you see that map? Am I?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the map for sidewalk. So that's not the one we want. Hold on a minute. Okay. So here's your map for the parking accessibility.
Correct.
One of the things that we noticed, if you look in the blocks between 3rd and 1st, there are no parking places there anymore. If you look at the old Google Earth, and I guess you live there and you know, there used to be at least one parking place down there. But there are 25 parking places in both those areas, and at least one of them that was there before. And I pointed this out to Michael or Josh one, that they did not replace that one when they remarked it.
Okay. Right. And then I have another question.
All right.
You had a slide of the Highlands Inn, and it has the rocking chairs there.
Mm-hmm.
They've been there for a long time.
Yep.
And I know some people say that's a violation, but I think we kind of sometimes get caught in a double bind. And again, Josh, correct me, but I think the history of that is that back in the 1940s, there was a lawsuit over that, about them putting the rocking chairs on the sidewalk. And in fact, the courts ruled in favor of letting them put rocking chairs on the sidewalks. I think it's kind of, they've been doing it grandfathered since the founding of the town. So how do we resolve an issue like that when it comes to handicap accessibility? Maybe it's too complicated for tonight, but I'm just.
No, I mean, that's a really valid question. And we talked about that a little bit while we were there. There's other things you can do. There's ivy that's poking out into the walkway too.
Right.
So there may be a way to make sure that, I'm not looking at the space right now, so I cannot remember if there was space between on the other side of the sidewalk, but maybe by removing the ivy and working with them to maybe keep an eye on turning the chair some, to leave like 36 inches is not that much.
Okay. I've noticed the ivy kind of bushes out and does add to the barrier.
It does.
Well, the other thing I would say is you talking about a lawsuit in the 40s, and the ADA was 1990 or something. So obviously that's going to take, they weren't thinking about ADA then.
Yeah.
Lots of things have changed. And you have to comply now.
Okay. Any other questions with Candace?
The only comment I would have is I had to figure out on my own what a truncated dome was.
Yeah, it's pretty specific. They have exactly how big the knobs have to be, and how far apart they have to be. And it's very specific that, like, if you're visually impaired, you're feeling for that specific shape and size. And that's why it's important to have the correct ones.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, thank you. And with Michael Matz as being our coordinator, we can, as your plan outlines, we start addressing these in a stage procedure. And some things we can do very quickly, and other things we might have to take more time in implementing.
That's correct.
Okay. All right.
So what's the plan for?
We have to adopt
designating
it.
you as the coordinator and the grievance?
Right.
So as far as a resolution, Candace, do you have a resolution that you typically use to adopt?
I do not have it with me tonight. I can probably find one for you and send it to you for sure.
Okay, and we could bring that back to the board.
For the December meeting.
Okay.
And then have the grievance thing that I don't have to read inside another thing
We'd have that too.
Separately.
separately.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments? Hearing none. Thank you so much for your presentation and the work that you and your staff did.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item will be the Code of Ordinance Amendments, burning and grubbing. We addressed this at the last meeting, and we're having Mr. Mathis come back for some information that he's learned since then. Michael?
Thank you, Mayor. So during last month's meeting, staff was instructed to contact the North Carolina Forest Service concerning their involvement with burn permits inside the town. After speaking with Macon County Ranger Benjamin Keener, we learned that the Forest Service doesn't inspect or enforce burn permits within the town limits. And furthermore, Mr. Keener stated that the Forest Service would not enforce any town ordinance or town permit. Again, the board has two options presented before them tonight. The first option would prohibit burning entirely, and the second option would prohibit burning in relation to land clearing. That's all I've got on my report.
On that second one under C2,
Yes.
it says burning in the fire district. What does that?
The Central Fire District, that downtown Central Fire District.
Oh, the Central Fire District.
Yeah, that, and
That's already on the books.
Okay.
yeah, we can probably just put Central in there if you want.
Well, the Central Fire District. I was thinking you were talking about the fire
Entire, yeah.
district. Okay, that's fine. Okay. What's the feeling of the board?
Well, you know, my feeling of it is I think we should ban all burning inside the town limits. Topography, air pollution, all those kinds of things mean that it's either yes or no. You don't have to say, oh, I'm not clearing land. I'm just burning all these rhododendrons, or it's just, it seems simple to me, no burning. And that's what I would be in favor of. And I realize, have you burned your leaves yet?
I have not. I was waiting on your comment.
Well, I figured you'd burn them early and then you didn't have to. worry about it.
No. I don't see how deep it was going to get.
Well, I just think it's for a lot of reasons, both environmentally, health wise, air pollution wise, and safety wise. As I said, Brian's not here and he probably didn't do it, but we almost burned up brush face from a burning leaf pile back in the early 2000s.
Yeah, way back then.
We checked that 20 years ago.
Yeah, Eric would remember probably.
Is that when
Been
it
a
was?
while.
He
Yeah.
was probably roaming through the woods trying to beat it out.
Going up that
Yeah.
steep slope, trying to beat it
Yeah.
out before it crested those houses up there.
Well, Commissioner Patterson, I understand your goal, and I kind of share some of those. But on the other hand, I look at enforcement and the idea of burning for the purpose of land clearing. To me, from an enforcement standpoint, that is very specific. You can go out, write a citation if necessary, and stop that. The burning outside the leaves, my concern is how much enforcement would have to be expended to make that consistent. So,
Well,
just
to me,
my-
see that, to me, it's a lot easier to say burning, yes or no, regardless of what the purpose is. You're not going to burn anything outside. And that way, you don't have to say, well, wait a minute, I'm the landowner. Yeah, I'm clearing this land, but I'm the landowner. I'm just burning leaves. They may be
But
attached
we
to
would not-
branches, but
you wouldn't be against the idea of people having a fire pit or outdoor fireplace or.
no, but I
Okay.
did say on there, it needed to be where it says permitted burning wood fire if burnt in a fireplace, fire pit, or other designated structure.
Right.
That could be a 55-gallon oil drum. A designated structure. That's what people burn in, right? I think it needs to be a little bit more than just. It has to be some sort of permanent structure, not a 55-gallon oil drum.
If someone
And
was
I-
using they have these commercial incinerators, would that be permitted? It's kind of a fancy oil drum, but it's commercial
Fancy oil
incinerator.
drum.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that would be something you'd have to think about. I don't know that, I don't know if you have to register those kind of incinerators. Because some things they don't let you burn because they're environmental hazards. And you
Yeah,
put a lot of stuff in incinerators.
I'm not sure on that. But what I can add is for the designated structures, we can get with, probably the best would be our town attorney, and he can redraft that. I drafted that up, and
Yeah, and I don't have any
Very broad.
designated, but I think people can say, well, I designated that drum as a.
yeah,
It's
no, or a metal trash can or anything
Right,
like that.
exactly. I'm not burning it, in my driveway. I'm burning it in a bucket.
And really, yeah, obviously the intention was just for those outdoor fireplaces or.
See,
anything like that.
I disagree. And I understand what Commissioner Patterson's after, but I just feel that you can burn safely if you're smart and use common sense.
It's the smartness. It's you can't fix dumb or
Well,
stupid or whatever.
so if somebody's
But-
burning in a,
Okay, Eric can tell you, somebody down on the 28 on a Long Hollow Road a few years ago took all the hot embers out of their fireplace in the house,
yeah,
put them out in a bucket, probably a plastic bucket, out on their deck and had a fire. Right?
Several times.
Several times.
yeah, it's happened
So-
numerous times.
It's just fires are devastating, and because of our topography, they can run up a hill pretty dang quick. I mean, yeah, we're on the top, so maybe it's not that bad, but
But if
so
somebody's burning in those conditions, then they need to be held accountable for that.
And there you go.
how?
Well, if you're burning when there's a burn ban, I mean, I know if I burn something, I mean, the first thing I do is check to make sure there's not a burn ban. Last
Yeah.
thing I want to do is burn down Mirror Lake.
And how many people do that?
Well, I don't know, but that's
But
what I'm
that is
saying.
enforceable though. Once,
Yeah, first of all, after the
Issue.
fire.
no. Once you, like, if we get in a drought situation, the county will ask me to issue an emergency burn ban. And then the fire chief or police, if someone's out burning leaves, can go there, and they've done that, and say, no burning.
But sometimes the burning is humidity level, it's wind speeds, it's those kind of things. And you may not have an official burn ban, but it is not a good idea to burn, when your humidity is 30 degrees or 30% or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And, or it's a 15-mile-an-hour wind. But there's no official burn ban.
Yeah.
It's just not a good idea. But nobody's told me I couldn't. I don't know anything about wind speed. I don't know anything about humidity.
Yeah,
I'll go out and burn it.
but you'd also have a hose handy too, or you should.
Pardon?
You should have a hose handy too, or a way to put the fire out.
Should. It's the
But that's
shoulds I'm
that's
worried
part of
about.
the regulations though.
Yeah.
So if somebody's doing it, they're not doing it properly, then they're held accountable for that.
After the neighbor's house burns down.
Josh, what does the fire chief recommend? I know he wrote us an email today. You and I have had a back and forth about a complaint.
He didn't recommend a full burn ban.
Correct.
I mean, there's a tradition, okay, and I understand that. You burn your leaves, right? I'm just saying, maybe we've come to the point where it's not good to leave rockers on the sidewalk, and it's not good to burn your trash in your backyard. Those are my thoughts, obviously. You need to be a 4-to-1 vote, so that's fine.
Michael, in your discussions with the Forest Service is not willing to enter into the city limits of Highlands to enforce a city ordinance, but are they not able and willing to enter the city limits on a Forest Service declared burn ban?
I think they are.
Yeah, I believe that's what BJ said to assist it, but we'd really just talk to him about the permit itself, like the existing one now.
Yeah, no, I
Which he
understand
said, yeah.
that. What I'm getting at is if the Forest Service issues a burn ban, that burn ban covers the whole territory. It doesn't stop at the city limits.
I think,
So
It does.
if violating a burn ban is violating a burn ban.
well, and Buzz, I think that if they issue a burn ban, Macon County then follow suit, and then they contact the municipality saying, we want you to issue a burn ban too, so it's.
And they'll do that. And then
Consistent.
if it's under a burn ban and, you know, somebody sees somebody burn, we as local department, we go.
We'll enforce it.
We take, actually put it out stuff, but they actually come and they will issue citations.
Right.
I think so.
Right.
We
And-
can't do citations, but they can, they do.
Right.
So.
And I have various feelings about smoke and pollution and that sort of thing. I understand my only concern, to address your vocalization on things getting away, is the fact that they can get away. As far as smoke is concerned, you know, any of us on any winter morning get up early and see smoke from chimney fire, people just burning wood in their chimney. I mean, air pollution. I'm not even going to go there with leaves. And so I think if we have an ordinance that says if you're going to burn leaves and you're required to have a way to extinguish that in short order, then that ought to be close enough.
Did you say contain and extinguish?
Not grubbing, not land clearing. This is just burning of leaves and.
Well, the other thing that gives burning a bad name, or like if you burn just like like sticks and leaves, well, wet leaves is smoky, but like if you're just burning like dry sticks and things like that, debris from your yard, those fires for the most, there's still particulate matter, but it's clean. It's like when you start throwing house materials into it, that's when it starts. Like when you see black smoke, it's not, that's like an illegal operation, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, I can burn a small pile of stuff and my neighbors don't even know what's going on because the smoke, like the smoke that's being made is just going straight up. It's not like, you know, I'm not going to do it when it's blowing towards their house and things like that. I mean, I just think if you have the regulations and people don't follow that, I mean, if you see black smoke billowing out of somebody's backyard, then you know they're probably burning tires or something, but.
Or at least pressure treated lumber.
I understand. I think the problem is if somebody doesn't do it right, the potential for catastrophic and substantial damage is there. And after the fact, you can cite them all you want, but the damage has been done.
That's why we have lawyers.
That's why we have lawyers.
Keep them in business.
But if they're doing it in an indiscriminate way like that, they're gonna do it whether it's restricted or not. That's right. That's that
Right,
type of
and if you
person.
see a fire,
That's that type of
we
person.
can go say, you can't do that.
Yeah. But I mean,
And then you don't have to make a judgment call, oh, I'm doing it correctly, got my hose next door or my bucket of water or, you know, whatever it is. It's yes or no.
Seems to me that the feeling on the board here, maybe not Commissioner Patterson, is that the burning of leaves and everything should be permitted with certain conditions such as water source, maybe some type of, you know, containment system. And that maybe between Michael and our town attorney, those kinds of particulars could be identified put into an ordinance.
Now, we do currently have a broad statement on that that says you got to have an adequate water source. Someone's got to be monitoring it, but if you want to get more
And
specific with it,
X amount of feet from the.
yeah, we
from
can
the
get
home.
more specific with
I
it.
think, I think the board would want to see more specifics. I'm not speaking for everyone, but that's kind of what I'm hearing.
Yeah, put some regulations on it.
Mr. Mayor, we used to call it vegetative waste.
You call it what?
Vegetative waste.
You can burn vegetative waste,
Correct,
but not your plastic containers.
correct.
Put your old lettuce.
I had a landfill at one time.
Well, I think what we need to do is to articulate this more and bring it back at the next meeting.
And I'd like to have the fire chief's input, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. What's the feeling of the board?
How much more do we need to articulate?
I mean,
Well,
it's pretty
I
well
mean,
in
either
there.
we're gonna burn it or we're not. Are we gonna have somebody put it in a 50-gallon drum or we're not? Either we're gonna have somebody put rocks around it or we're not. You know, they need to burn. I mean, I agree with the having a water source or having an extinguishable source. Somebody's got a fire extinguisher standing out there, then maybe they don't need to have a hose. Maybe it's far enough from the house that their 50-foot hose doesn't stretch that far.
Well,
If they've got a fire extinguisher, they can be standing there with a fire extinguisher.
And see, Buzz, I think you're bringing up the particulars that might need to be identified and defined.
Well, I think
in any final thing we do.
I think if we have an acceptable way of extinguishing the fire, but then you get into chemicals. Oh my gosh.
Well, I will defer to
Spewing
Officer
chemicals out in the woods, put out the fire.
folks like Officer McCall will have to be doing the enforcement. And Officer McCall, you would like some real definitive guidelines on this, correct? I'm not leading you, but go ahead, tell me.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, see, that's a problem.
And that was my original idea, was, you know, grubbing and lane clearing, building, burning construction material. Okay. Commissioner?
I'll make a motion
Okay, all right, go ahead.
that we adopt the verbiage that in front of us, what I believe to be the second option, which allows for burning of yard waste, leaves, that sort of thing, and not grubbing.
Got a motion?
Second.
We have a second from Commissioner Pearson. We have any further discussion?
No, I wanted to understand, in my mind, grubbing is when you land clear. When you have a bulldozer push up the roots and you grub. Okay.
That is correct. And also, and I think in the provision, it says that the burning stops at 6 and doesn't start at 7:30. Grubbing just keeps going on for day after day. And so forth. Okay, we've got a motion on for any further discussion? Hearing none, let me call the question. All in favor, would you please indicate by raising your hand and signify by saying aye? Okay, and opposed?
Aye.
Okay. We have
Or
4 to
nay,
1.
whatever.
Right, okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, the next item, number 15, sidewalk master plan update, Lamar Nix.
In your packet, you have a proposed master sidewalk updated plan. I think it's been about 2008 since this plan had been updated. Josh, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think this plan was made up from the comp plan. A lot of discussions, is that correct? A lot of discussion went into the areas they thought they needed to add to the master sidewalk plan. We took that information as staff, met with the Public Works Committee. We talked about it. There's some areas we decided that due to the topography or the way the street was being used, we need to use the other side of the street, little details. But the plan you have in front of you represents the proposed master sidewalk plan. The staff recommends that you adopt it as the plan, hopefully tonight, so that we can put Mr. Stillwell back to work on modifying some plan. We won't go into those details, but it's his recommended that you do adopt it.
Okay. Do we have any questions of Mr. Nix?
I wanted to ask a question, Mayor. I thought we were going to try to go down 4th Street just to Mitchell's Motel driveway. There's a lot of pedestrian traffic there.
I think the discussion on that was the 106 corridor. If
Right.
that project is completed,
Right.
would take care of those concerns due to the projected cost of just getting to Mitchell's Turn with the retaining walls that I designed and did an estimate on. It's going to cost a tremendous amount of money just to get to that.
Just to get from Bryson's to Mitchell's driveway.
One retaining wall that was
Yeah.
quite expensive.
You know, I went out with Lamar and there are just some drop offs where you would literally have to build pretty substantial walls to
All right.
put it in. And the other thing we were talking about, I know Derek Taylor at Highlands Decorating and actually Shelby Place. Those Shelby Place could be accessed on 106 with this new.
That's correct. And just because it's not on the sidewalk plan doesn't mean that we as the town can put that as a project at any time you feel the need.
Right.
Let me just ask for a point of clarification. I see some new sidewalks over by, I think, Smallwood and every other places. Those have existing houses there. So if that sidewalk went in, we would have to put it in as a town, correct?
That's correct.
But if there's new development, i.e. what happened across the street, then the developer has to put it in as a part of the plan, and then it becomes our duty to maintain it. Is that not correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Any other comments about the sidewalk?
Maybe I need a clarification of that. A development as opposed to just somebody building a house on a lot.
Is that correct, Josh? I think that's the way. That's correct. If it's residential, that doesn't make them build that section.
Right, that's why I thought residential is not. So when you were talking about, because a lot of this is residential.
It is. And then some of it is not. For example, Spring Street.
Right.
If that were to be modified or some project come in on some of that, then that little section below Helen's Barn would have to be put in by the developer.
Right.
One comment I'd like to make on the proposed sidewalk on Oak Street. If memory serves me correctly, the initial subdivision request that we granted for those new homes going up there did not include sidewalk. And isn't that correct? Did not include sidewalk that the developer put in.
That is correct.
Okay.
This
I
includes
think that's an opportunity that when he does his second phase, we should require the sidewalk on the whole thing.
That's what I was alluding to a minute ago.
Okay. Sorry for being so dense.
One of the reasons is we have the sidewalk, master sidewalk plan, because then it's on the books if they have to do it.
Yeah.
So you want a motion to approve this
Correct.
master sidewalk plan as presented?
Mhm.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Second. Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand and signify by saying aye. Thank you. It's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Lamar. The next item will be Highway 106 sidewalk plan proposal. If you recall, on several meetings back, we engaged Alex Stillwell, who is a professional engineer, to come up with a conceptual drawing of how this sidewalk project could take place, and he's here tonight to present that. Thank you for your patience, Alex.
Thank y'all. I had been tasked with putting together a preliminary engineering report for the project. And I don't know if y'all have went through the report yet. I was just going to basically run through it real quick. See if you guys had any questions afterwards. The project is construction of an ADA compliant sidewalk, which starts at the Highlands Plaza Road, goes to Call Road, Highlands Country Club. There where it's at the end there where it says project end. I will say that I do have an ADA compliant ramp there. But anyway, so sidewalk was to be located on the northbound side of Dillard Road, Highway 106, because of the amount of development that's on that side of the road, which is extensive in the other side.
So it goes down the north side from the town all the way down to the country club?
Yeah.
Okay.
South side.
Wait. Is that oriented correctly? It's north up?
Yeah, no, well, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm saying that Dillard Road is north south road.
Okay.
Sorry. This would be
north travel lane size, traveling north, which is the basically kind of the east side.
This would be east.
East,
So if I'm driving to town, which side's the sidewalk on?
Right.
Okay.
Same side.
Right, and they actually put out some red stakes in some areas, like in front of Highlands Decorating Center.
Okay.
And some, so it
Right.
stays all on that side.
So when you say it goes down to Cobb Road, then it's going to be on the opposite side of Cobb.
Yeah. Yeah. And those red stakes were laid out by the town. And basically was the distance that we would have off the edge of the pavement, which is a total of about 7.5 feet. I believe that's right. Yeah. Well, actually 1.5 feet, 6.5 feet. We did get confirmation from NCDOT that we could construct it in that fashion with a 1.5 foot wide curb and gutter and the 5 foot sidewalk adjoining it. And the reason for that, to get it as narrow as possible, because we have hardly any shoulder on that road, on that side of the road. And that basically drove the design for the project, is to keep this thing as narrow as possible and as close to the road as possible. There are some locations where it just doesn't seem like we're going to be able to contain the project within the DOT right of way, where there will be instances of having to get some kind of at least construction easement from adjoining property owners off DOT right of way. And there's a couple of sections on there.
among the three.
This area, pretty much where a lot of it is. road's just so elevated above natural ground on the side of the road. We have to tie that into that natural ground a little bit off the road. We call that construction. If you'll refer to page 3 of the report, I've got a typical section that kind of explains that right there. Here's the edge, the highway as it is right now. Looking at like her, like sidewalk. It's 1 foot shoulder to side. It would come down with the in those spots, in those locations. The only way to keep this from doing that is to do that. To keep it constant. One of the concerns also too in the area is we've got a creek running through there. I believe it's Monger Creek. Yep. In particular at the, you want to bring that up? Okay. Right here. I'm sorry, right. Long Creek is all close to the road. It's kind of spreading out. I can see the. Sex bit, so maybe the case that on the other side of the road, water sidewalk with a greenway type setting.
Alex, you've also proposed that on the Shelby Place property too.
Yes, that's the place I'm talking about.
Okay.
I was hoping I said it right. So, yeah,
Okay,
but I believe that's Shelby.
correct. And the idea is that that creek comes so close to the road. It's
Yeah.
almost impossible
Yeah.
to
it's-
build out and not impact that creek.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if I was standing at the edge of the road, I could drop a rock right there and it hit the creek.
Okay.
Just
So you're
about.
building bridges over the creek.
Yeah, if we did that,
If you went off to on the
Right.
private
if
property.
you could get on the
just
Shelby
that section.
property, yes. We could minimize, if not eliminate all impact to that sensitive area if we bridge over the top of the creek into strategically placed bridges. And I think that it would look, aesthetically more
And you
pleasing.
could keep the 1 in 12 ADA.
Yeah, we should be able to in that area. It appears to me that we could.
Those bridges, would they have to be concrete? Could they be wooden? I mean, what are we talking about? Are we gonna have to build literally a bridge?
Well, I think, there's several ways to do it. You can get prefabricated bridges that would be ADA compliant. I apologize, I'm not very educated on the requirements of ADA for that type of a bridge. But I've seen all those types, of course, with wooden plank bridges and concrete bridges, and they can be prefabricated. So there's a lot of choices for that, I believe. and that goes to the permitting requirements, I think. Of course, we'll have to have NCDOT encroachment agreement that would be between the town and DOT for the entire length of the project. And we are more than likely going to have to get in the Division of Water Resources on some of these areas where we cannot avoid getting into Monger Creek. And in conclusion, I believe that the sidewalk would be very beneficial to the town and all the businesses that are located along that stretch of highway for access to the town pedestrian wise. One of my main concerns, of course, if anybody has been out there walking around, is the traffic that's on there. I would recommend that the town petition the DOT to at least put some signage up warning the motorist traffic that there are pedestrians present. I would even go so far as to have possibly look into reducing the speed limit through there to 25. Another reason being is because we're so close to the edge of that road. The edge of the sidewalk would only be 1.5 feet from that edge, and traffic just needs to slow down from what's going on right now. But if there's any questions on it, I'll go over the estimate real quick.
I was going to ask you that, so go ahead and tackle it.
I gave two summarized project estimates. One was with the sidewalk crossing in environmentally sensitive area to the other side of the road, which not real big fan of where I got it from right now. Somewhere where there's a lot better side distance. Possibly move the next crosswalk farther down also too. That's option A on the estimate. Option B is that relocation. The option A was around 1,477,000. Option B was 1,524,000. If there's any questions.
Anyone have any questions?
Alec, you lost a ton of weight, haven't you?
I've tried.
Yeah. You recommend that we hire an environmental consultant. Do you have, how much would that, it seems like that's the next thing to do.
In my mind, I think the first step would be to get a project survey, an actual surveyor out there to locate what we have and what we're dealing with first.
Right.
It may not be as bad as what I think it is, just looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
And a true topographical survey is going to tell the tale of what we really got out there. If it's something that's pretty substantial and the surveyor picks it up, then yeah, I think that'd be the next step, would be to hire environmental firm. Check that out.
Mr. Mayor, you said, talked about reaching out to the property owners. Is it going to be accepted or is it going to be pushed back, or we don't know yet?
Just don't know, but I think that's a step we need to proceed with.
Right.
Yeah, I'd understood that you were looking at, I think there was some private money that was going to be.
We're looking at that.
Okay.
Yes.
But I think the more, of course, the more help you can get, any places where there's potential of making this more of a greenway type thoroughfare would be great.
Okay.
In, of course, a lot of ways.
One of the critical things would be to now talk with the folks at Shelby Place and get their reaction to this alternative greenway type trail on their property.
Right. I would think that, possibly talk with them about how they can have access of their own. Of course, I know there's security reasons with that would be taken into account. Be beneficial to the residents of that area.
Okay. Any other questions?
What do you want to do next? Mr. Mayor?
What's the feeling of the board? And Josh, what would you suggest we do next?
Up to you guys. If you want to proceed with the surveyor, then we can do that. Lamar, do you have a recommendation at this point?
Well, I say, like this concept. Parts of this concept. Right on the back, the options of this. Through private properties. It's much more efficient than two pedestrian crossways, across this road.
Yes.
To do that, we need some cooperation with the property. See if we're willing to cooperate in that matter. If there are benefits to them, obviously, to do that. It gives them access that they didn't have. Construction, that's further up the road, probably on the next plan. Maybe on the other. Actually, it's on the other side. That would to that property owner, get a construction easement to put basically pack the stream for a short distance. And they would get the embankment, they need to support this thing. Like the tank off that right now.
That's right.
So you got two property owners that will need to get their blessing. I think probably the next step is the board likes this concept. Pursue that. And maybe I was going to do it at the same time or not. Commission out whatever to coordinate survey, geotechnical, the things that will have to be done, the environmental study. At some point, you have to contract with engineering to proceed on the rest of the aspects of that. Certainly have to have cooperation to property owners.
Well, I do want to say, it could be done. It could be done without the crossing and without the greenway section. Fish can shove. It's just, you're talking about an extensive permitting process by going about that way, and of course, expense to get it the way that the state will want you to build that in both locations.
On the Greenway part, if we went, kept it on the road and went the permitting process, what's the time, your best guess of time factor to get that permitted and additional costs to put in retaining walls? Is that going to offset the plan B?
Just final guess, I would say you're looking at 6 months to a year of permitting, because you're going to have to engage with an environmental firm, and they're going to go back and forth with the state, and we've got to make it happen. And then there's a way, we've got to figure out a way to pipe that stream. There's just no way around it. We'll have to pipe that stream somehow. If it's splitting up, if it's ponding up, and we're dealing with wetlands also. We've got up to, I want to say, half an acre that we can permit without. That can be immediately permitted, but it could be more than that. We have to take the whole project into consideration. The state will take the whole project, so it's not just that area. they're also going to be looking at all the other locations from that point all the ways up to Highlands Plaza. So we're trying to keep that under that threshold, those environmental thresholds, 150 feet of stream. And it's, I won't say it's a half acre, might even be an acre of wetlands that we have to stay under before we get into that major 5 or 6 month to a year permitting process.
Seems to be our next step would be
You talking?
Hmm?
You talking property owners?
talk, maybe the mayor, maybe the Public Works Committee, or someone approaching the property owners to get their reaction. And maybe, if Alex, if you'd be willing to be a part of the conversation with the property owners.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that would be the next step, and then for us to report back at the next meeting.
Very good.
Is that the feeling of the board?
Yep.
We'll proceed, and we'll get back with you, Alex, with Lamar, and we'll just set up these meetings and share this with the affected property owners and get their reaction.
Okay.
Response. Okay.
All righty.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank y'all.
Very good. Okay. The next item, financial matters, financial policies, auditor's recommendation, Rebecca Schuler.
As you know, at the last board meeting, we presented some financial policies that the auditors had recommended, a cash deposit policy, a comprehensive financial policy, and a credit card policy. Those were pulled till this month, and Amy and I did finally get together and work on that just a little bit. So you guys have received all of those. Does anybody have any questions on any of that? It's basically putting into writing what we already do.
That's what I was about to say.
Yes.
That a lot of this stuff, as I read through it, for example, the mayor doesn't have a credit card in his pocket. I've never been able to use one. It's always a town manager or you or someone that has to account for everything.
Yeah, we sign them
Okay.
out, except for a few department heads.
Rebecca, it talks about having a reserve of 50% of our
Mhm.
budget. We're already there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I left it in there like that, because it is good. You could change that number if you wanted to.
And I'll just bring this up. I know that we have a real strong reserve in the fire department because we had the increase in the tax. It's built up.
Yes.
We'll look at that as we make sure that that building is completely furnished and equipped. And then we've ordered that fire truck. Any other reserves, I think the plan would be to pay toward the financing of the
Yes,
building itself.
yes, we have discussed that.
I move we adopt the financial policies as presented.
Okay. Second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next matter is a budget amendment for the foam tank addition to the new fire truck. Gerhard came last month and asked you guys for the budget amendment for the truck. And upon signing for the truck and getting that underway, we realized it didn't have foam on it. So that is a need, not just a want. I mean, I don't guess it's a need, but it's a high priority thing. So anyway, they went back and got us another quote for that for $25,111. So we need to do a budget amendment for that. You have that. They do, as the mayor said, have a good reserve right now. So that's coming out of their reserve.
I move we approve the requested budget amendment. $25,111.
Let me make sure I understand what you're saying. We approved something last time,
Yes,
Approve
but
the
it was the
purchase.
wrong
truck.
thing?
it was the right truck. It just didn't have the tank added to it.
Oh, okay, so we're
We
not
forgot.
rescinding what we did last time. We're just
No,
adding. to
We're
it.
just adding a foam tank to it.
Got it.
Yeah, let me tell you, if I could have got that truck down from $450,000 or $500,000 to 25, I'd have said, oh, yeah.
Okay. And we have a motion and a second. Any further questions? I'll call the question. All in favor, please raise your hand, signify by saying aye. Thank you. All right, and then finally,
The last one is the Big Bear Pin tower maintenance, which Matt gave you all of those specs just a little while ago. So we just need to make a budget amendment so that we can pay for it.
We approved the budget amendment for tower maintenance of $26,574.36.
Second.
and we got a second. Any questions? Hearing none. All in favor, please raise your hand, signify by saying aye. Thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
much. Item number 18, closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statutes 143-18.11A3, attorney-client privilege, the Huff versus Town of Highlands lawsuit case. Do I have a motion that we go into closed session?
So moved.
Okay, second. All in favor?